I shouldn't have looked at her like that. Not in that moment. Not in that way. But something in her eyes told me she already knew. It started on one of those slow, too quiet evenings at my friend Aaron's house. He'd left for the weekend, some out-of-town wedding, and asked me to stop by and water the plants while he was gone. I didn't expect her to be home. I didn't expect anything at all. But there she was, sitting by the open window in a faded sweater, reading something without really reading. A glass of untouched wine on the table beside her. The kind of quiet that feels personal. Like I'd stepped into a memory I wasn't supposed to see. Didn't think anyone was home, I said, stepping inside. She didn't flinch, just looked up, soft-eyed and tired, and said, "Neither did I." I'd known her for years, Mrs. Bennett. She always smelled like garden roses and coffee. The kind of woman who made tea instead of coffee at night, who hummed when she folded laundry. Elegant in that slow, deliberate way older women carry themselves when they don't realize anyone's watching. Except I was. And that night, I couldn't stop. She wore her hair loose, something I'd never seen before. It made her look younger, somehow. Softer. The sweater slipped a little down her shoulder when she reached for the wine. She noticed my eyes flick down, and for the first time, didn't pull it back up. "How's school?" she asked. I shrugged, leaning against the doorway like I wasn't nervous. Still pretending I know what I'm doing. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You always look like you're searching for something." "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Like you're waiting for someone to understand you." She paused, then looked away. Or maybe I'm projecting. That word, projecting, hung in the air like something heavier than it should have been. I walked closer. Slowly. No plan, no intention. I just didn't want to be standing so far from her anymore. "I never really saw you like this before," I said, careful, quiet. "Not until tonight." She met my eyes, and for the first time, didn't look away. "Maybe you weren't ready to," she whispered. I don't know what changed after that. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. The room got smaller. The silence stretched longer. My heart knocked too loudly against my ribs. There was a warmth in the space between us, not just attraction, but something lonelier. Like we both had things we weren't saying. Like we both knew it was stupid and complicated and maybe a little wrong, but it still didn't feel that way. She reached for the wine again, but her hand stopped halfway. "I've been waiting," she said softly, barely more than a breath, "for you to notice me." I froze. My mouth opened. I don't even know what I was going to say, but just then, the front door creaked open behind me. Aaron was supposed to be out of town. My blood went cold. She stood up slowly, brushing past me like nothing had happened, like we hadn't just crossed a line we could never uncross. But her hand brushed mine as she passed. Deliberate, lasting a second too long. And in that one touch, everything changed. It wasn't Aaron. Just the wind catching the old screen door and slapping it shut. But in that second, that terrifying, heart-pounding second, I realized something I hadn't let myself think before. I didn't want to get caught, because I wanted there to be something to get caught for. I didn't go home that night. I stayed. Not long, not close. Just long enough to help her fix the broken latch on the door, then sit on the back steps in the dark with her. Close enough to hear her breathing. Far enough to pretend I wasn't thinking what I was thinking. "You and Aaron have been friends a long time," she said, eventually. "Since 6th grade," I nodded. "That's almost half your life." She laughed lightly, but it didn't last. Something in her tone shifted. Quieter. More careful. "I was married once, you know," she added, running her thumb along the rim of her now empty wine glass. "Aaron's dad left when he was 6. Said he felt invisible in his own house. I guess I wasn't very good at showing up in the right ways. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just watched her. The way her voice barely held together. The way she didn't look at me. "You ever been in love?" she asked suddenly, turning toward me. I wanted to lie. Wanted to say something cool. Something that made me sound less like some 24-year-old who barely knew himself, let alone anything about love. But I just shook my head. "Not really," I admitted. "I've wanted people I couldn't have." "That count?" She smiled, but again, not with her eyes. "More than you think." The air felt heavier after that, like we'd both said too much without saying enough. I tried to look away, but she leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. You scare me. That hit harder than anything else could have. Why? Because I forget how young you are when you talk like that. And it makes me want to forget everything else, too. I didn't move. Couldn't. My throat tightened. She pulled back just a little, as if catching herself in the act of something dangerous. You should go, she said gently, before I forget myself completely. But I didn't. Not right away. Not until the silence between us became unbearable. Even then, I stood slowly, my fingers brushing hers again as I passed her the glass to take inside. She didn't let go. Not right away. Her thumb moved across the back of my hand. Small, unsure, like she wasn't just touching skin, but asking a question. And I didn't pull away. I didn't plan to see her again that soon. But 3 days later, Erin texted, Can you grab my charger from my room? Mom's home, but she's cool with it. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was no big deal. I was overthinking. It was just a charger. Just a few minutes. I rang the bell. She opened the door in a soft gray robe, hair damp like she'd just stepped out of the shower. Her eyes widened, not in surprise, but something else. She already knew it was me. I didn't think you'd come, she said. I tried to laugh it off. Just doing a favor. She stepped aside. I walked in. The same hallway, same scent of lavender and old wood. Everything exactly as I remembered. Except now it felt like the walls knew something. She followed me halfway up the stairs. Stopped. You left your watch that night, she said. It's in the kitchen drawer. I couldn't stop looking at it. I turned slowly. Why? Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. A pause. One of those long, electric pauses where everything in you pulls toward the person and screams not to. I can't do this, she whispered. I've thought about it too much. Then stopped thinking. I'm not allowed to want this. Her voice cracked. I'm not a kid. That's not the point. Then what is? We were too close now. I could see the pulse in her throat. Her hand reached up, maybe to push me away, maybe not. I didn't know anymore. Her fingertips brushed my jaw, and then a knock on the door. She jolted back like she'd been burned. Her robe shifted, and she tightened it quickly, breath shaking. I stayed frozen on the stairs. Stay here, she whispered. I heard the door open. A man's voice. Deep. Familiar. Too familiar. Hey, Lauren. Forgot my coat. Erin's dad. I'd only met him once, years ago, at some birthday thing. I didn't even know he still came around. I didn't know you were in town, she said, a little too quickly. I wasn't planning to be. Thought I'd stop by. Thought maybe we could talk. Now's not a good time. I held my breath. My foot creaked on the step. Silence. He was still standing in the doorway. You have company? There it was. She hesitated for 1 second too long. No. Just no. She closed the door on him, then turned and stared up at me from the bottom of the stairs. Eyes wide, chest rising too fast. We can't keep doing this, she said, more to herself than to me. I know, but I still didn't leave. She still didn't tell me to. Instead, I came back down the stairs, and for a long moment, we just stood in the kitchen, not touching, not speaking, hearts loud, lips trembling, everything unsaid stretching between us like it was about to snap. She didn't return my texts for 3 days. No hey, no sorry, not even a read receipt. I told myself to let it go. She'd made it clear. This wasn't going to happen. It shouldn't happen. But the silence? That burned more than anything she'd actually said. I walked past her house 3 times before I worked up the nerve to knock. And when the door opened, she looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot, eyes red around the edges like she'd been crying or trying not to. She didn't smile. Hey, I said. She stepped aside without a word. The living room felt colder than usual, blinds closed, no music, no wine. Just her and me and too much distance. I shouldn't be here, I said, but didn't move. I know. Then silence. I didn't know Erin's dad still came around. He doesn't. She sat on the edge of the couch, hugging her knees. He just shows up sometimes, stirs things up, then disappears again. Is that what I did? That made her look up, sharp, tired, raw. No, she said. You didn't stir anything. You woke something. She stood, walked past me toward the window, rubbing her arms like the room had gotten colder. I spent years teaching myself to forget what it feels like to want someone, to be seen. Her voice was low, uneven. And then you looked at me like I wasn't invisible. I moved closer. You're not. She laughed under her breath. You say that now. But what happens when you realize I'm not what you thought? That I'm just your friend's mom who's lonelier than she'll ever admit. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. I see the way you look at me, she continued. And I want it. God, I want it. But it scares me. What scares you more? I asked, stepping closer. That you feel something, or that I do too? That broke something. She turned to me, fast, reckless, eyes shining. You're 24. You have your whole damn life in front of you. And I'm standing here shaking because I don't know what to do with how badly I want to kiss you right now. The air between us tightened like a string pulled too far. Then do it, I whispered. Her breath caught. She reached for me, stopped, fingers hovering just above my chest. But if I do, she said, voice barely audible, there's no going back. I leaned in, just enough for her to feel my breath. My heart was pounding. So was hers. Her lips parted. Her eyes searched mine. And then, the front door handle turned. We both froze. A voice called from outside. Aaron. Mom? You home? I forgot my keys. She stepped back. Fast. Breath hitched. And just like that, everything held inside us collapsed into the silence before the door opened. Aaron walked in like nothing had happened. Dropped his duffel by the door, called out, Hey, thanks for grabbing the charger the other day, and headed straight to the kitchen. She and I stood in the hallway, breathless, barely holding it together. She forced a smile. Hey, sweetie. I didn't know you'd be back early. Yeah, he called, digging through the fridge. Train got canceled. Took the bus instead. I glanced at her. Her hands were shaking. She was squeezing them into fists to make it stop. I should have left. Right then. But something in me couldn't. Maybe I wanted to protect her. Maybe I didn't want to walk away like it hadn't meant anything. But then, Aaron's voice from the kitchen. By the way, what's going on between you two? The silence hit like a slap. She blinked hard, then stepped into the room first. What do you mean? He pulled out a soda, leaned against the counter, too casual. Just asking. You've been weird lately. He's been weird. You guys talk or something when I'm not around. My stomach flipped. She smiled. Too tight. He helped with the door latch. That's all. Aaron looked at me. Something behind his eyes changed. You left your watch here, he said flatly. Yeah. I answered, trying not to sound like I was lying. You never take that off. I had no answer for that. He set the soda down, slow, deliberate. You know what? I don't even care if something happened. Honestly, I figured it out 2 weeks ago. She froze. What? I saw your text pop up on his phone. Don't come unless you mean it. He laughed, bitter and sharp. You think I wouldn't notice that? She covered her mouth like she'd been punched. You didn't say anything, I said, because I didn't want to believe it. Aaron's voice cracked. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she was texting someone else. But then I saw the way you looked at each other. His eyes locked on hers. You told me he was like a son to you. She flinched like the words cut deep. I never meant for, yeah, he snapped. That makes it better. The room felt like it was collapsing. I'm your son, Mom. Not just your roommate. Not just some guy living here. And you still chose him over being honest with me. I didn't choose anything, she said quietly, eyes welling. I didn't expect any of this. I didn't plan it. Aaron turned to me. You should go. I nodded, stepped back, heart in my throat. But just before I reached the door, she said it. Out loud. I love him. The words hung in the air like glass suspended in mid-fall. Aaron stared at her like she wasn't real. Like someone had swapped her out for a stranger. He didn't say a word. Just walked upstairs. The sound of his door slamming echoed like a final verdict. And all she could do was stand there, hands shaking, eyes glassy, whispering, What have I done? It took her 3 days to call me. 3 days of silence, of imagining what she must have looked like after I left, standing in that hallway, her son's voice still echoing upstairs, the truth hanging between them like smoke that wouldn't clear. When her name finally lit up my phone, I didn't answer right away. I stared at it. I let it ring out. Then I called her back. She picked up on the first ring. "I can't sleep," she said. "Me neither." Another long silence. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "You didn't. Then why does it feel like everything broke at once?" I didn't have an answer, but I knew that feeling. It had lived in my chest since the moment I walked out that door. She asked me to meet her at a park just outside town. Quiet, empty, a place I'd never been. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench in jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked younger, sadder, realer than ever. I sat beside her, close but not touching. "You okay?" I asked. She gave a small, bitter laugh. "No, but I'm here." She turned toward me slowly, her eyes red but dry now. "I can't lose my son," she said. "I know, but I also can't lie to myself anymore." My throat tightened. "Every time you walked into the house," she went on, something in me lit up. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was wrong, that I was just lonely, bored, imagining things. But I wasn't. I wasn't either. She looked at me. Really looked. "I meant what I said, you know." "I know. I love you." Those 3 words didn't explode between us. They sank. Like weight. Like truth. Like something solid we'd both been afraid to hold. I reached for her hand, gently, and she didn't pull away this time. "You don't have to choose," I said. But she shook her head. "I do. Maybe not between you and Aaron, but between hiding and living." She turned her body fully toward me now, holding my hand tighter. "I'm not going to pretend this never happened. I won't call it a mistake. But I need time. And so does he." I nodded. "So do I." Then she leaned in, resting her forehead against mine. No kiss. No heat. Just skin to skin, breath to breath, hearts trying to slow down. "If this is real," she whispered, "it'll survive the silence." I didn't want to let go, but I did. We stood together for a while, watching the sky shift colors above us, like the world had finally exhaled. And when we parted, no promises, no guarantees. It wasn't with goodbye. Just a soft, quiet, soon. It was 2 months before I saw her again. 2 long, silent months where I didn't text, didn't show up, didn't even walk past her house. Part of me wanted to. Every day. But something about that last conversation, the way she said, "If this is real, it'll survive the silence," kept me grounded. I respected the space, even if it hurt. Then, one evening, out of nowhere, I got a message. "Can you meet me?" No punctuation, no explanation, just that. I didn't ask where. I already knew. She was waiting at the same park bench, same quiet spot under the oak trees. This time, she stood when I arrived. She looked different, stronger somehow, eyes clearer, not hiding. Before I could say anything, she stepped forward and hugged me. Not quick, not polite, real. The kind you don't give unless something inside you has changed. I told him everything, she said into my shoulder. I held her tighter. How'd he take it? She pulled back, looked at me. It was awful. He yelled, said things I think he needed to say, but then he sat down and listened. Eventually, I exhaled, heart slow for the first time in weeks. I told him I loved you, she said, and that I wasn't asking him to be okay with it, just to understand that it wasn't something I planned, but something I couldn't ignore. I nodded slowly. And now, she smiled, the real kind this time. Now he's not speaking to me. I blinked. But, she added, he told me to do what makes me happy, which, from Aaron, is basically a blessing. I laughed. She did too. So what do we do now? I asked. She reached out, fingers grazing mine, the same way she did that night in the kitchen. Only this time, there was no fear in it. We try, she said. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. It wasn't perfect. We didn't ride off into some storybook ending. People stared. Some whispered. Aaron kept his distance. Her sister told her it was a midlife crisis. My roommate asked if I had mom issues. But we didn't care. We met for dinner, walks, nights in with movies, and too much wine. We started slow, not hiding, but not putting it on display either. We were just us. She wasn't just my friend's mom anymore. And I wasn't just some confused younger guy chasing something forbidden. We were two people who found each other late, complicated, and real. And honestly, that was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let me know in the comments. Speech Balloon Red Heart.